But before we start, I'd like to give just a little introduction about the Wellesley Cancer Prevention Project. We're a local nonprofit group composed of people who've been touched by cancer in some way and have the goal of doing something with our community and beyond to help lower the risk for cancer. And we do it in several ways. One, we bring expert speakers into the community to help us learn different ways to reduce cancer risk. We have a website where we publish different strategies to help us be healthier and reduce the chance of getting cancer. We're also going to put on an event with local businesses to teach us how to deal with stress and mindfulness, which is one of the pillars of cancer prevention. And we also have a technology initiative where we're working with Boston University to develop an app. This app will be able to scan any barcode. It'll tell you the ingredients in that product and the associated risk for cancer. So we're working with Boston University and their students on that, and that's ongoing. We hope to have something out by the end of the year. So that's a little bit about us and what we're doing. Tonight's speakers are here to talk about stress reduction and mindfulness. And to introduce them, I'd like to introduce Chrissy Harding, who's our newest board member.
Thank you. My name is Chrissy Harding, and I am the newest board member. I went to an event in December, and when I heard the 3 things that Wellesley Cancer Prevention Project focuses on, which is nutrition, the environment, and mindfulness, I knew I had to get involved. I've lived in Wellesley for over 20 years, and I've been a cancer patient at Dana Farber for the past 3 years. I've been fortunate in many ways. One is that this community has rallied around me and other cancer patients. So much I can't even describe. It's just really been wonderful. And the second is that I feel very fortunate to live so close and have such access to the wonderful research center that Dana Farber is, with its world-class physicians and treatment teams. It's an amazing place to go to. So today, we are very fortunate to have folks from the Zakem Center at Dana Farber. In fact, I was at Dana Farber yesterday for treatment, and I was at Dana Farber today, and here I stand. And the Zakem Center, I've received several services there. Acupuncture, I've done several classes there, exercise classes, and massage therapy. It's really a fabulous place. It's like going into a high-end spa. And we are so fortunate to have the speakers here from the Zakem Center. These ladies have worked all day and came out at 7 o'clock to Wellesley to talk about cancer prevention and mindfulness. So Ann Kelly is a nurse at Dana Farber. She's been there for over 20 years. And Patty Arcari is the program manager for meditation and mindfulness at the Zakem Center. And we're so happy to have you here. Thank you for coming out.
So I'm just going to kind of go through some information about ways to live healthier and reduce your risk of cancer, and then Patty's going to do some meditation and stress reduction with you. So what is your risk of getting cancer? 1 in 3 Americans will develop some form of malignancy in their lifetime. There is 1,437,000 new cases each year, and of that, 500,000 or more will die from cancer. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States, second to cardiovascular disease, which is on the decline. So what can we do to reduce that risk? Research suggests that about 70% of cancers potentially you have the power to not contract them or to change. So getting a regular physical exam, having an established medical provider is very important. Having that at least an annual physical exam, having your mammograms, colonoscopy, pap smear, prostate exam, skin checks, and screening CTs for lung cancers. These are all tests that are aimed at early detection. okay? What are the things that would make you alarmed or cause you to pause and report to your physician? Report any changes in bowel and bladder habits, a sore that doesn't heal, any unusual bleeding or discharge, a thickening in your breast or someplace in your body that's new, just causing you some problems, indigestion or difficulty swallowing that is just persistent, changes in a wart or a mole, a nagging cough or hoarseness, and understanding what your family history is, so that if you have a family history of breast cancer or ovarian cancer, then you can be more vigilant about these particular cancers. Maintaining your healthy weight. Obesity is a factor in a number of cancers, including breast, endometrial, kidney, esophageal, and pancreatic. Research has shown that if we control our weight through healthy living, exercising on a regular basis, we can reduce our risk of cancer. It also reduces the risk of diabetes and heart disease. What is a healthy diet? Eating a whole food diet with lots of fruits and vegetables, incorporating whole grains as much as possible, such as whole grain pastas, whole grain breads, quinoa, brown rice, eating more fish and poultry, avoiding a lot of red meat and processed meats, healthy snacks such as nuts. The Mediterranean diet is a good example of a healthy diet. It focuses mostly on a plant-based food such as fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and nuts. It recommends the use of olive oil instead of butter. Some of these fad diets take some very complicated physiological processes and make them sound very simple, such as the no sugar diet. Every one of us could cut back on a sugar intake without a moment's hesitation. But the thought that, if you have a little bit of sugar, it drives the growth of cancer just is not true. So just focusing on a good, well-balanced whole food diet, lots of fruits and vegetables. I say the more colorful you can make your diet, the better. Exercise. Exercise has been shown to reduce the risk of breast cancer, endometrial cancer, prostate cancer, and colon cancer. Adults should get at least 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise per week. And this can be done in small increments. You don't have to go to the gym. Just get out for a walk every day. Walk the dog, work in the yard, find something you enjoy. But the more active you stay, the healthier you stay. Over the years, I've looked at my patients, and who are the people that have aged well? And they're the people who keep their weight in a good range and are active. Tobacco, how long did it take us to kind of finally come to the realization that tobacco is not good for us? And tobacco is responsible for 1 out of 5 cancer deaths. It's not only lung cancer, but it's mouth cancer, throat cancer, pancreatic cancer, bladder cancer, cervical cancer, and kidney cancer. And don't forget that secondhand smoke affects the people that are around you. And e-cigarettes are more popular than ever, but they'll say there's no research. There is no tar in e-cigarettes, but there is some question of heavy metals in there. And the concentration of nicotine in many of these products is very high, so they're stronger than e-cigarettes. Limiting alcohol. There's evidence that alcohol can increase your risk of breast cancer, esophageal, liver, colon, and rectal cancers. The recommendation is to have no more than 2 drinks per day for a man and 1 for a woman. Protecting yourself from the sun. Skin cancer is one of the most common cancers that we see. Using sunscreen with a broad spectrum SFP 30, applying every 2 hours, avoiding midday sun, wearing protective clothing, including sunglasses, wide-brimmed hats, and protective clothing, and avoiding tanning beds and sun lamps. Getting vaccinated. The hepatitis B and C increase your risk for liver cancer. Since hepatitis B vaccine was introduced, the incidence has declined from 373,000 cases in 1990 to 17,000 in 2010. That's huge, okay? The human papilloma virus increases your risk for cervical cancer, cancer of the penis, vagina, and oral cancers. The CDC estimated that approximately 30,000 new HPV-associated cancers were diagnosed between 2008 and 2012, with 19,000 of them being women and 11,000 men. A study of immunized young women saw that 78% reduction in HPV types compared to the historical controls. Again, this is something that I think has been controversial because, you know, vaccinating initially was young women, but now it's, you know, we're recommending both men and women or young people in their early adolescence before they're sexually active. And of course, that brings controversy with you, but it's showing now more and more that it really prevents HPV-associated cancers, and it's very important. The Epstein-Barr virus increases the risk for Burkitt's lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, and nasopharyngeal and gastric cancers, and the Helicobacter H. pylori increases your risk of gastric cancer. There is work going on right now looking for vaccinations for, vaccines, I should say, for both of these viruses. Avoiding risky behavior, avoiding being exposed to hepatitis or HIV, practicing safe sex, and needles, Stress, this is a big one. It's a challenge for everybody. Stress has a profound effect on how your body systems function. This is a quote from Lorenzo Cohen, who is a professor of general oncology and behavioral science at the integrative medicine program at MD Anderson. Does stress cause cancer? There's a lot of research trying to prove this. We don't have definitive proof here, but there's no doubt that stress promotes cancer growth, and it just makes your body more hospitable to cancer. You know, I think the stronger and healthier your body is, including learning ways to deal with stress, just makes you a healthier person and more resistant and resilient. There are different types of stress. You know people that just thrive on stress. They're busy, and if they can't sit still, they're more stressed if they sit still. There are different kinds. There's short-term stress that subsides when an event's over. So you're nervous about giving a talk, holiday shopping, planning a big event, you know, minor car accidents. These are all episodic things that can cause, you know, short-term stress. But it's those long-term stressful events with no end in sight. Caring for a loved one who is ill, unemployment, difficult relationships, financial hardships. These are issues that cause long-term stress that cause the most damage. So I'm going to hold my questions, but I'm more than happy to answer. But I'm going to turn it over to Patty, who's going to continue some more information about stress.
So the first step in meditation is to take the focus away from the thinking mind and ground it in something that's sense-based. So you can decide to focus on the breath. You can decide to focus on the body. You can decide to focus on something that you're hearing, something that you can see. You can decide to focus on yoga or Tai Chi, which is also using the body as the main vehicle for grounding your attention. So this evening we're going to use a little bit of focus on the body, focus on hearing, and then focusing on breath. The first step I'm going to guide you to is if you feel comfortable, sliding out of your shoes and putting your feet firmly on the floor. And if you don't feel like taking off your shoes, that's okay too. The point is to be able to just use these sensations that are at the bottom of your feet as they're connecting with the floor as the place where you are directing your attention. So just let yourself feel that sensation of contact between the floor and the bottoms of your feet. Notice that feeling. You might feel a sense of solid presence. You might notice a sense of warmth. You might find that your feet are tingling a bit. Just let those sensations be the place that you're focused on right now. And now take your hands and place them on your lap. And let your awareness or let your attention move up into your lap. And feel the sensations that are present in the bottoms, in the palms of your hands as they're resting on your lap. And once again, as you're focusing here, noticing the sensations, you might feel things like a sense of holding as your palms are resting on your lap. You might feel a sense of warmth. Perhaps you're feeling some heaviness. Whatever is here in the sensation experience in your thighs right now, let that be your focus. And if it feels comfortable for you now, let your eyes gently close and invite your attention to move even more deeply into your body as you just begin to notice your breath, becoming aware of your in-breath and feeling your out-breath. Just giving all of your attention and all of your care right now to the sensation of breath as it moves in and moves out. Simply becoming aware of your breathing. Noticing breath. And as you're focused on the breath, see if you can move even more closely to that breath and begin to notice where you're feeling it in the body. As you breathe in, you might feel your belly rise with the in-breath. And as you breathe out, you might feel your belly fall. Or maybe, as you breathe in, you're feeling breath most strongly present in your chest. Breathing in and feeling the chest rise. And as you breathe out, just notice how your chest falls. Just being with breathing, wherever you're feeling it. Not trying to change it or make it any different. Just noticing. Allowing that breath sensation to be the anchor that keeps you right here, right now, fully present in this moment. In breath and out breath. If you notice, and it happens for all of us, as soon as you notice that your mind has wandered, that you're caught in thinking, just gently, without giving yourself a hard time, come back to the sense of breath moving in and breath moving out. Simple awareness of breathing. In breath and out breath. Simply noticing how one breath automatically follows the next in a never-ending cycle and flow. Breathing in now. I calm my body. Breathing out now. I smile. Dwelling in this present moment. This is a wonderful moment. And now, let's shift our attention once again so that our focus becomes a sense of hearing. Simply become aware of the presence of sound. And as you focus on sound, you might begin to notice background, airflow, the sound of my voice. Now noticing the presence of the background music, the flow of the ocean. Simply allowing sound to become the grounding for your attention. Noticing how sound is moving in and moving out of your awareness. Not thinking about sound, but paying attention to the experience of hearing sound, the vibration, the tone, the quality. Simply being with hearing sound. Using sound as the anchor that keeps your attention here. As the anchor that keeps you in this present moment. Breath now. Coming back into focus. Noticing the in-breath and the out-breath. Just gently riding the waves of breathing. And as we come to the final few moments of this time for meditation, simply noticing the body, the mind, the experience of relaxation. And know that this place of focus and relaxation, this place of awareness and healing, is always present and accessible within, whenever we choose to bring our attention to the breath in this present moment. And now begin to bring your attention back once again to a sense of yourself sitting in the room, in your chair right now. And as you feel ready, you can open your eyes. So my old teacher Dr. Benson used to start every talk with meditation because he truly believed that in order to get this, you had to have the experience. And it has served me well, and so I hope that you can begin to make the connections between the experience that you just had and what we're going to talk about a little bit here now. So I'm just going to briefly review some of the studies to give you full confidence that there is a solid evidence base for using these strategies as stress management tools. We've done lots of studies using mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, mindfulness for short, in lots of different populations of people experiencing the stress of illness. And particularly in women with breast cancer, we've shown improved levels of stress, quality of life, sleep, decreased fears of recurrence, improved physical functioning, and decreased stress and anxiety. Other studies that have been done showing the effects of cognitive behavioral strategies, which is a broad category that describes meditation and mindfulness, show improvements again in depression and psychosocial and physiologic adaptation and quality of life, again in women with breast cancer. And in one of the strongest studies, I think, in support of the effects of meditation is a JAMA review study that showed small to moderate reductions in multiple dimensions of stress in people that had a regular meditation practice. So the evidence is there, and you've had your direct experience, so let's put those two things together to help support adapting this behavior. Because, does this look familiar? This is one of the most common symptoms that bring people to programs to try to learn strategies to manage stress. And as I like to say, when I first put this slide up there, this is supposed to represent early morning awakening. Anybody ever had this experience? You wake wide up. Now, since working at Dana Farber, this is actually normal wake-up time, but it's supposed to. But insomnia or problem sleeping is one of the first symptoms that bring people to learn how to manage stress. The body is the most accurate messenger when it comes to letting us know when there's something off and letting us know that stress is becoming an issue. And so listening to the body is that first indication that lets you know that you need to move and try to learn skills to reduce it. So how do we define stress? And so again, working for years and years in a stress clinic trying to identify and measure stress, we actually spent a couple of years trying to find a definition to really represent what stress is. And we decided on this definition from Lazarus and Folkman for a specific reason. And we call stress the perception of a physical or psychological threat, and the perception that we just don't know how to deal with it, that our resources, our responses are inadequate to deal and cope with that threat. What jumps out at you from that definition? Anybody? Perception. That's exactly right. And so perception denotes something that we are responsible for creating, right? So if we perceive that we're overwhelmed and there's nothing we can do about something, that is stress. But as we come to understand that stress is a concept that can be changed and is a function of some of that thinking process that you might have noticed just briefly while we were meditating. How many of you noticed what was going on in your thinking mind when we were meditating? Yeah, so the first step in being able to manage stress is to be able to get in touch with that thinking mind that's constantly going so that we can see the thoughts that are creating the perception that we can't handle it. Does that make sense? All right, so the first step is understanding that you're feeling stressed. And then the second step is saying, it's not that I can't handle it, I can handle it. And so if I learn specific strategies and incorporate it into my life, I'm going to feel more empowered, and that power and that control is going to factor in to how I experience this stress because I can change it. Does that make sense? Okay, so stress is the perception of threat. What is resilience? Resilience is a reflection of those coping mechanisms that we're going to use to manage the stress. Resilience is a combination of skills, abilities, and characteristics that interact dynamically. So that means it's a combination of your inner abilities, those things that you know deep down inside you can do to help yourself, plus specific tools that you learn. So you take those two ingredients, your own desire, obviously you've got it because you're here to learn these skills, in combination with some specific tools that you can learn, and together those interact dynamically to allow you to not just cope with the stressor, but to use that stressor to rise to even higher levels of health and well-being because you're bringing these tools into your life. Does that make sense? And how many of you've been through this experience? Raise your hand if you're resilient. Everyone. Yes, absolutely. So what we try to do in our mind-body resilience program at Dana Farber is use those two pieces of the definition, helping people understand what stress is by feeling it in the body and identifying it in their lives, and then teaching them a variety of skills to work on that second half of the definition so that they're feeling like they have the resources to cope with the stress. It's an 8-week program. As I said, is composed of a number of tools to help people learn to manage the stress, and leads to reduced physical and emotional symptoms and enhanced quality of life. And we open this program to all patients and families in all phases of their treatment. I wanted to talk about this slide very briefly because it does show at a neurocognitive, physiologic level what's happening during stress and then resilience. So this bottom part of the brain is called the amygdala, right? And I'm sure you have all heard of this place. It's the part of the brain that's responsible for the fear response. So anytime you're feeling threat, the amygdala jumps in. It's the most primitive part of the brain, so it evolved to help us deal with present moment threats. So when you're getting chased by a bear, you need to respond. When you're feeling that there's a threat to the body, you need to be able to respond, and the amygdala wires the brain to move into a stress response. Now, that's helpful if you're needing to outrun the bear, but it's not necessarily helpful in response to all of the everyday thoughts that trigger stress in our lives. So when we're in stress, the amygdala is in control, and it basically hijacks the entire brain, fueling that sense of fear and dread and threat, okay? So the top part of the brain, or the prefrontal cortex, this part right here, is the part of the brain that evolved most recently, where higher level thinking comes in, where reality testing, where ability to make informed decisions and regulate our emotions come from. So, stress is the amygdala, resilience is the prefrontal cortex, and learning to manage stress is a function of moving from, I'm sorry, I think it's my sweater. Moving from bottom. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to move away from the bottom up control of the brain into top down. So we want any of the tools that we learn to manage stress reinforce the top part of the brain. So it puts the top part of that prefrontal cortex, again, in control of what's happening physiologically so that we can override the fear response in the amygdala with rational, concrete tools to manage our stress, okay? Right. So, what are some of those tools that are going to give us top-down control? These are the tools that we learn in our mind-body resilience group, and I'm just going to review the top 3, hopefully very quickly, so that you can take these away for your own use, and more to come at another time. Okay, how many of you have heard of minis? Patrick, I know you have. Okay, minis are a form of mini relaxation. Minis are a way to use focused breathing, like we did just now, as a way to reduce tension and anxiety on the spot. How many of you noticed feeling a little bit more relaxed after we did our meditation than before you were doing minis? Now, the great thing about minis is that you can do them anywhere. You can switch your focus to in-breath and out-breath no matter where you are whenever you notice that you're feeling stressed. So you are waiting for a call from the doctor and you're noticing your anxiety. You stop and you do a mini, 2 or 3 or 4 breaths. You are stuck in traffic and you feel your hands gripping the wheel. You shift your focus to the breath and do a mini relaxation. And what I like to call minis is a bridge. So a formal meditation practice, like we did, is very useful when you're sitting in your chair. But how do you take that sitting in your chair to your car when you're leaving here tonight? It's the minis. It's that ability to take the formal practice into the moment-to-moment informal activities of your life. Make sense? Okay, how many of you are using your breath? Excellent, excellent. How many of you are going to try when you leave? Excellent. Okay, so meditation. We've talked about this already. It's a mental discipline where we are trying to get out and beyond that reflexive, negative thinking pattern and ground our awareness into a deeper state of relaxation or awareness. Make sense? And we already talked about the different ways that we can ground our attention. There are many different ways to meditate. There are many different doors into this same room of relaxation. We did a breath-focused meditation just now. We can use body scan meditation, again, going systematically through different parts of the body, using the body as a focus in order to meditate. We can use walking as a way to focus our attention in meditation. Imagery, visualization, yoga, tai chi, sound, contemplation. There are many different ways, as I said, to accomplish this. And in our course, we teach a different type of meditation practice each week. So lots of different opportunities to build this into your life. Benefits of practice, relaxation, insight, and happiness. Now, look at this slide. What do you see? A heart, right. If you stop and pay attention, life provides opportunities for happiness and joy and fullness and richness beyond measure. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese monk who's probably one of the leading teachers of mindfulness in our culture now, these days. And he says everywhere around us, life is a miracle. But we don't always see it. Why don't we see it? Because we're not always paying attention. That's what mindfulness is taking that quality of attention and moving it into the moment-to-moment experience of living. What did you notice? What did you notice on your way in this evening? Anybody? Anybody notice those bursting purples and reds? What kind of flowers are those? They're peonies? What are they? Rhododendrons, yes. And peonies. What else did you notice? The sky. What did it look like? Yes, it was. It was really cool, right? It was that filmy gray blue over the, was it the sun? Yeah, it was over the sun, right. Anybody else? What did you have for dinner? Did anybody have dinner? Nobody had dinner yet. Who said yes? You did. What did you have?
Bok choy soup with sweet potato.
Did you taste it?
Yes.
Yes, and you noticed what it tasted like?
Yes.
Yes, how was it?
It was very
Very good. So that's a great example of an activity, an event, a simple part of our daily routine that has the ability to bring this kind of joy that Thich Nhat Hanh is talking about simply by paying attention. So mindfulness is taking that quality of attention into all of our moments so that instead of being stuck in that part of the brain that's initiating frightening, threatening thoughts, we put that sense of attention on what's happening in our lives in the moment, and that is the source for being able to see miracles. So it's basically the art of living consciously. Now this is the opposite, and believe it or not, this is what TVs looked like when I started teaching mindfulness. So does this look familiar? It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your mind is? Right? How many of us do this? Zone out. How many of you have had the experience of getting into your car, putting the key in the ignition, and the next thing you know, you're pulling into your driveway? Yeah? That is not mindfulness. That is mindlessness. But it's something we all do, right? What's the problem? You got there. What's the problem in doing it that way? You're unconscious. You're missing your life, right? Those moments are your life. Those are the moments that have the potential to bring that kind of quality of joy into your life. So mindfulness just says that I am going to take this quality of attention and I'm going to put it in as many of my moments as possible. I'm going to live consciously. And so you're probably sitting there saying, of course, I'm going to pay attention. I always pay attention. But mindfulness says that you want to try to bring attention into your life in a very specific way. You want to pay attention on purpose. Now, when we sat down to meditate, obviously, we all began with the intention to pay attention, right? What happened within probably 30 seconds? Anybody? You took off and started thinking about something else, right? So mindfulness says that every time you notice that your mind has gone away, even though you wanted to pay attention to that sky, or I wanted to taste that bok choy, I started to think about something else. So mindfulness says, I'm going to, on purpose, continue to focus my attention on what I'm doing in the moment, okay? The second way that we're paying attention is in the present. Now, where does our mind usually go? Forward and backwards, that's right. And when you stop and really notice, it's amazing how much of our lives are spent in those two places. And again, the consequences of that are that we're missing our lives. So mindfulness is a very, what Kabat-Zinn calls it, a conscious, systematic cultivation of attention in this very specific way, on purpose, in the present, and non-judgmentally. So, homework assignment. When you leave here this evening, pick one thing and pay attention to it. Maybe you'll catch the end of the sunset. Maybe you'll notice a really great piece of music on the radio in your car. Maybe you'll get to have dinner finally when you sit down. Just notice that experience and what it feels like. Okay, I do want to live in the moment, just not this moment, like some other moment, like a moment on the beach. That old, it's Monday, I can't wait for the weekend. What happens when we do that? We've said it 3 times already. You don't want to miss those moments. So there's a story about a meditation teacher named Jack Kornfield. I don't know, there's some, you know Jack's work. He's wonderful. If you're looking for a teacher to follow in online or in some sort of online presence. Jack is one of them. But anyway, he tells the story. He and a handful of psychologists in the late 60s, early 70s decided that they were learning about these techniques happening in the Far East, and they were looking at what was happening in American culture, and he decided, again with some colleagues, to actually go to the Far East and learn how to meditate. He became a monk and really grounded in these techniques so he could bring them back and share them with his patients. So he went to, I can't remember exactly where he went, but for 7 years he studied and then came back and was trying to decide where he was going to set up his psychotherapy meditation practice. And he decided on, of all places, Las Vegas. You know the story?
No, I'm just seeing.
Yes! So Jack went to Las Vegas, and he was getting the lay of the land, and he's walking through the casino, and all of a sudden he sees this sign on the wall. You must be present to win. And guess what? He said, I'm swiping this sign because this is the essence of what I'm here to teach people. In order to really be able to experience the fullness of your life, you must be present. And meditation is about bringing that quality of attention, mindfulness, to as many moments as possible. Pretty soon we might be able to say that that's Everett. So another technique or another sort of practice that really is linked with meditation and mindfulness has to do with looking at the nature of our thoughts, understanding when they're moving into negative, and shifting into more positive, life-affirming thinking. So appreciation as a concept is really just all over the media and the academic literature, and people are practicing now more than ever before. And there's real science and there's real justification for trying to learn techniques to move our thinking into those positive directions. Hans Selye was actually a physiologist at the turn of the century that created the research behind the general adaptation syndrome, which is part of the fight or flight response, and it articulates all of the hormones that are activated when you're in the stress response. And even he, this stress physiologist, said that the most important thing that we can do to move out of stress physiology is to shift our negative thinking into more positive thoughts. So way back when, even without the science, he understood the impact of positive thoughts. How many of you are practicing appreciation? How many of you keep a journal, or before you go to sleep at night, try to focus on a couple of things that happened that were good? You do. And what does that feel like? What do you notice?
You do notice how many things you have to be grateful for, even on a bad day.
Mm-hmm. And so what does the connection between the thought and the feeling, what is that experience like? This relationship between thought and feeling is very strong. So once you shift into those positive thoughts, it's very easy then to identify the positive emotions that come along with those positive thoughts. And that is basically another way to really understand that the way that we are channeling our mind and our attention have a profound impact on the mind and the body, right? So for those of you who, can I give you another homework assignment besides your, besides paying attention? For those of you who haven't yet started the practice of just beginning to become aware of those things in your life that you appreciate, spend a couple of moments each night before you go to sleep writing down 2 or 3 things, and it doesn't have to be something big. It can be that, that first sip of coffee, the taste of your Starbucks in the morning. My husband would say Dunkin' Donuts, but no, it's Starbucks coffee in the morning. Or again, bok choy, or the conversation with a friend, or the sense of connection that you feel with people in a room, just noticing what was good and writing it down, and then noticing how your emotions sort of follow and how your mood changes. So I had said that I'd give you a couple of resources to develop your practice. Minis. Can you try to do a couple of minis each day? Another homework assignment. Just 2 or 3 or 4 times. Those, whenever you notice you've got some time, whenever you notice that your body is holding on to stress, whenever you find that you're just awfulizing or worrying about something specific, stop and breathe and try to do 2 or 3 minis a day. Insight Timer app. It is one of the best apps out there in order to give yourself a guided meditation experience. It is free. You go to the App Store, you just search Insight Timer, you download it, and it literally hundreds of guided meditation and that music that we did for our meditation tonight. How many of you have ever heard of Headspace? Good. How many of you are using Headspace? That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's another type of tool to help give you some structure, and it's a mindfulness meditation-based app. So check that one out. And then I mentioned that we run groups at Dana Farber specifically to help people learn skills and tools, because it's not easy to cultivate new behaviors in your life. It's not easy to sort of say, I'm going to do this every day and just do it. And it's very helpful oftentimes to find a group like you have all found each other in this group. So there are a lot of groups out there, whether in churches or at different parts of the city or in hospitals, community centers, just looking around, and know that support will help really ground these behaviors in your life in a more sort of easier way. So I leave you with a Chinese proverb. I hear and I forget. Maybe you'll remember some of my words. Maybe you'll remember some of the slides, but hopefully what you'll remember most is that experience of relaxation and meditation that we started with, because that's what's really going to ground this in your life and help you make it a priority so that it becomes a useful tool for you. Any questions? Yes?
Are the programs at Dana Farber reserved for patients, or the open to
Patients, family, support systems. Everybody. It's so funny. Today we had, in my drop-in group, we had a mother and a daughter, and a mother and a son, and both children were there supporting their parents as they were going through this experience. And I thought, this is so wonderful that the Zekam sort of approaches to see the whole family as a unit that we are here to serve and help. So I'm not sure if you're a Dana Farber patient, but maybe you know someone who is at your support. Yes, Patrick?
I'm guessing you're going to say it's a matter of personal preference and convenience, but do you have any thoughts about the ideal time of the day, most beneficial time of the day to have a focused meditation versus a mini?
Right. I've always found, in my own life, that first thing in the morning worked for me. And it worked because I attached it to a regular behavior that happens every morning. So it used to be that, when I first learned how to meditate 30 years ago, I would get up, get in the shower, and then go meditate. And it always got done, and it started my day. And then I had kids. And I didn't always get a shower, so I couldn't do that anymore. So you want to make your practice as integral to your life as possible. There's no one right way. You want to find the time that works best for your life. and experiment. Think about it as, your life's this little learning laboratory, and you're trying to figure out how to make it work. Yes?
You mentioned time. How much time?
So there's no research yet that really speaks to time at all, except for long-term monk meditators. And when I first learned this, the recommendation used to be 20 minutes twice a day. Now, fast forward 30 years, and the Headspace folks are actually responsible for doing a lot of the research around effectiveness and time ratio. And they start off by asking you to do 10 minutes a day. And in fact, their app starts with 10 for 10, 10 minutes a day for 10 days to ground it. Anybody else? Yes.
In talking to cancer patients, have you found that a lot of them say that right before I was diagnosed, I was going through a very difficult, stressful period? I can say that for myself, work-wise, I was very, very stressed at work. And I have no proof that that contributed to my cancer, and then when you're diagnosed, it's none of that other stuff matters.
Yeah.
It really, and so then it's a shame that it took getting cancer to kind of realize that, but I wonder if other cancer patients say
So I think there's two parts of your question, and I'm going to do the second part first. When you got diagnosed and you realized that none of that mattered, that was a shift of perception, right? So it doesn't necessarily require a worst case, to elicit that, right?
Yes.
When you become aware, whether it's through a talk or an experience or an illness, that provides sort of that peak opportunity to shift the way that you're doing things, right? And it's in line with that definition of resilience, which talks about bringing these qualities into your life to actually raise the quality of your life, right? So you're shifting your perception and you're creating this new way of being. And then in response to people talk about stress, there is no solid link between stress and cancer. And I think it does so much more harm to think that you caused it. Herb, I don't know if you remember, used to present this. We used to, in the old days, present this diagram about the causation of illness, and it's 3 interlocking circles. There are 3 reasons why people are susceptible to illness. 1 is behaviors, 2 is environment, and 3 is genetics. So there are many reasons why we get sick, and to try to think that my stress caused it doesn't really.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Fourth is bad karma.
We could go into that philosophical that conversation. You could change the way you look at that one too. Anybody else? Okay. Did you have a question? No?
And any questions about, I went through a lot of stuff kind of quickly, so
In your talk, you talked about alcohol and cancer, or stress and cancer. Just where do you like to go to find that information about that convinces you that there's a link between them?
There's been research that shows that there's some alcohol-related cancer diagnosis. That I think they've looked at people who are heavy drinkers. I can't recall the study at the moment, but I can try to find it. But I know they've looked at it, particularly in breast cancer with women. Chances of
Like peer-reviewed medical journals.
yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Good. Well, I hope this was helpful.
Oh, it was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much.